point at you, and you can ask anything. You can say anything that ends with a question mark, and we will attempt to push that forward, or otherwise, if we can do otherwise. We'll also possibly mentioning anime that you've never seen before, and if you would like, we'll give a list of things that we think you should see, which are interesting and fascinating. Yeah, let's start. Do you want to start at the beginning? Let's start at the beginning and we'll get to the end of stuff.
Beginning. Yeah. So what happens is you're unemployed.
Oh, look, Scotch guard. That's good.
And someday the phone rings and it's noon, and so you open your eyes and reach for the phone. You clear your throat a couple times so you can sound like a human being. Whoever's on the phone. And the area code is 818, so you're thinking, ooh, this is probably work. I should answer. No, seriously, that's how it works. You're like, I don't want to answer. Ooh, money call, okay.
This is the Valley or Texas? Oh, please.
Hello. And they call you with something to direct. Now, especially in LA these days, post-anime bubble popping, there's just not a whole lot of anime being done. So even if you have directed things before, even if you've directed things really well, it's not like, oh, this thing ended, the next thing is going to start up seamlessly. There's downtime, which is what crying and alcohol.
There's months of abuse and introspection, and yeah, it's all.
And that's the directing process.
It's very David Lynch, yeah.
And so someone will randomly contact you and be like, we want you to direct this thing. You go, okay, I would like work. At which point, they say something like, you're gonna start in 2 weeks. You go, oh, okay. So they tell you a little bit about the show. Now, the first thing you have to do is familiarize yourself with the show. Now, Japan is not forthcoming with materials.
Not often.
Not really. Like, they're not gonna be like, here's your info, run with it. So, usually when I've worked on, like when I did Monster, I thought, okay, this is the kind of show I need to know what's going on. So I found myself some fan subs, because they exist. And I thought, I really need to know if like the random waiter in episode 14 is gonna be the mastermind of the whole thing. Because sometimes there's some people that can be the random waiter, but they can't be the mastermind.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get burned, so I want you to watch the whole thing.
You do a mainline, you just watch it all in one big heavy round, and then you find every interview with the creator you can, you find whatever manga you can, you find whatever discussions on the show that you can, you find any historical information on anything, you just start absorbing lots and lots and lots of information.
And then what happens, Taliesin?
And then you forget it all. No, really. I do anyway. Then what happens is you're sent a script, and you are sent this fabulous, depending on where you are in the process, you are sent this wonderful Japanese script, which is usually kind of sort of what's going on screen. Sometimes they've made some changes that are new. Sometimes there's new information in there that was very useful.
Sometimes there are verbs.
Sometimes there are verbs.
Sometimes there are.
Sometimes there are tenses. That can happen. Articles. Never. And then the translation process begins. The translation process is one of those things that many people think they understand, but no one does. I apologize if you were already in one of my panels and already heard me say this, but I'm going to talk about this. There's a word that is used to describe, yes, I know you've already heard this probably 9 times. There's a word to describe translations, which is a word that I hate. It's a word that I loathe. I want it stricken from the English language, which is the word accurate. Accurate. Translating is an art form. Translating is very, very much an art form. Anybody who does it well, anybody who does it with any competence, not even well, with competence, will tell you that it's not, there's a reason we can't just make a computer program do this, is because it is an art form. You can't be accurate with art. You cannot sit down and say, that was the most accurate apple pie I've ever eaten. That was such an accurate apple pie. I've seen some accurate apple pies I thought were more accurate before, but I was wrong. This one was far more accurate than that apple pie. It's madness, and it creates a scale it creates what we like to call a bullshit scale, which is that suddenly you have this whole language about talking about something which is just utterly untrue, and you just need someone occasionally to set up to the emperor has no clothes. There is no such thing as an accurate translation. There's just translations that can be pushed in different directions, and no matter what you do, and I'll go into not enough time for Lewis Carroll, but you've heard about Lewis Carroll, right? On Game of Logic. Logic systems, it's great. No matter what you do translating a script, you're going to lose some information. There's going to be some information that's supposed to be conveyed that you just cannot convey. There's just no way you can do it, and you have to accept that. And then you also have to accept that you're going to gain a whole bunch of information that wasn't there before. You're losing something and you're gaining something. And depending on whether or not you're building this is where the translation splits, and we go for this very, very literal, very dry,
slavishly
devoted to definition and precision, with no thought of context or subtext. And we create the subtitle track. Subtitle tracks are without context or subtext. You don't get that. Subtitles don't know how to deliver that, which gives you this really great, I know I'm going to go for a little bit. I know you love this part. It gives you this really great foreign feeling to something. When you want the experience of watching something foreign, you get a subtitle. Subtitles are there to create a window for you. Subtitles are historical. Subtitle does to anime what going to Pompeii does to your experience of knowing what it was like living in Pompeii.
A lot of people suffered to bring it to you.
Yeah, you'll never know what it's like to live in Pompeii. But you can go there and look at it through this window and go, oh, that's kind of what it was like. But that's what the subtitle does. You're never gonna, it's not the real thing, but it's this fascinating window into it. Dubs, on the other hand, we push it, we lose all that literalism, we lose all that, we give you the context and the subtext. That's what we're really, really good at with the dub. And with that, we create the audience experience, which is almost, I'll call it the Ren Fair experience. You'll never know what it's like to live in the Renaissance, but at the same time...
You need a turkey leg.
At the same time, you can go in there and you can kind of submerge yourself, or more of the theater thing really is more fair, is that if we did our job on the dub, and if the script is correct, you will laugh when the Japanese audience laughs, you will feel pain when the Japanese audience feels pain. Subtitle tracks, you're not going to do that. Sometimes you're not going to be as emotionally attached as you should be. Sometimes you're going to laugh when the Japanese audience wouldn't laugh. You'll do that a lot of the subtitle track because you're on the outside. With the dub, if it's well done, you will not know it's dubbed, you will not know it's foreign. We remove the foreignness from it. We make it culturally connected to the West as much as we can. We make it so your parents can enjoy it, which is either a good thing or a bad thing in your mind, depending on where you are. And that's okay. With that, we then go about the casting and start putting everything together. So you go for the next bit. I did the scripts.
For the casting, it really depends on the project and the client. Sometimes they'll come to you and say, this is who we want for the entire cast. Sometimes they'll say, this is just who we want for these particular roles, and cast the rest of it at your discretion. Sometimes they'll say, go crazy and do it all yourself, we trust you. It really depends.
Once in a decade.
Yeah, right. It really depends on the project. What the casting experience is, and this sort of segues into the topic when people are like, oh, we're hearing the same people over and over again, why are we always hearing so-and-so doing this kind of part? It happens. The reason that is happening is because the bubble has popped, budgets are smaller, nobody has time, nobody has money, that's the same thing. They could, take their machete and venture out into the wilderness and find someone who does the young, earnest 15-year-old hero really well, and we've never heard this person, and oh my gosh, it's gonna be like unwrapping a new present on Christmas, and it's a leap of faith, and they were good when they could have been horrible. Or we can call Johnny and know that it's gonna get done.
And get done in an hour.
Yeah. No one has, even like when I came in, there was more money to be had, there were more projects, things weren't so dire. They could take the time to say, well, okay, this guy didn't trip over his own mouth.
There was a time when we were doing dubs where everybody would be new. Like, we would be like literally a brand new cast. Like we have 5 or 6 like clean slates, but really only like 4 or 5 of those people from back then are still doing it at this point on my end.
Which is kind of spooky.
It was kind of spooky.
I feel like I dodged the bullet.
You did. Maybe not the next one though.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'll get better. I have a tremor. I keep trying.
And then that is the reason you can take a chance on people. You can say like, okay, we're gonna do this small part. Okay, you didn't miss that. We'll give you a slightly larger part. Now it's like boom, boom, boom. Use the people we know. I think Funimation still has open auditions every now and then, but in LA it's who do we know, who's been doing it. Let's call the ringers every single time.
Funimation has built a really good process where you start getting, if you're a local actor, you start getting called in for walla work. If they like in the walla work, then you start going to incidentals, and after you've done about 50 shows-ish, which goes faster than you think, then you start getting they're like, all right, come on in, you're already reading, but then they're like seriously considering you for heavy stuff. But they don't have to teach you how to do it, which is its own process.
What was that first word you said? The walla work?
Walla, oh yeah, definition. Walla, 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 walla. Any scene that has a large crowd, any time that you have like 7 or 8 unnamed characters who are like obviously just sketched out, that's walla work. We get 4 or 5 people in a booth, and we literally go, all right, we have 2 actors here. They're like, we we don't even have a script for these guys. There's like 4 people here. There's one person who just makes a little mouth noise there. Let's just do it. Here we go. And then you just get these groups all sort of like, well, we're like, yeah, so I was going over to the club last night, and it was just, oh my God, look at what she's wearing. It's just weird. Yeah, it's like you just
have a pill for that.
It gets really raunchy.
You have actors like that every time you get into the ball, like what horrible thing is going to be said. Because they know it's going to get mixed down to the point where nothing is audible, but still you're looking at the engineer like, that's not going to be, we're okay, right? Okay. And Walla is where it's this really weird thing. It is great to have improv skills. It is great to have improv experience. It is good to be able to think of new things on the fly. However, by and large, they don't want you messing with the script. They don't want you saying, I'm gonna throw out this line and do my own take. No, it's on the page for a reason. Now, when it inevitably doesn't fit the flap, or it's a word short, it's a word, that's where the improv skills come in. And in Walla, where they say, okay, these guys, they just woke up from being asleep for a while, now monsters are attacking them, and so for the next 2.5 minutes, they're dying horribly, running for help, and go.
Oh, and it's 14th century England, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. So don't mention anything anachronistic.
Yeah. So don't mention cars. Don't mention And some directors get very, very serious about that, and some don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It depends.
That's where the improv skills come in.
Yes.
Okay.
So yes, that's again, feel free to raise hands if we start talking about stuff that doesn't quite click. So yeah, that's where a lot of actors start, is they just start in this little background stuff. And even the big, everybody just still does it. I mean, just because it's whatever 5 people you can wrangle together in a studio for a couple hours to kind of fill out. And you can turn 5 people into a crowd of hundreds. Like it takes about 5 people to make a crowd of hundreds or thousands. There's maybe 8 people in the crowd of like the big rock show in Beck at the very end. It's about 8 people. Yeah, about 8.
About 7.5.
But yeah, with that, and so once you kind of, and then the casting is always kind of, if you're in charge of it yourself, then you actually get to do it right, which is always kind of nice. And it's very difficult because you can just, on a certain level, there are people who just hire the 10 names that they remember. We call those bullshit directors. I call them bullshit directors. And then there's like the fun of actually the alchemy of it, of figuring out who sounds good together, putting up making sure that if you were to shut your eyes and just listen to it, you would never be confused about who's talking, you would never have a moment. If the script is good, you could be able to read it without the names and always know who's talking. Like, you should be able to not look at who's speaking and just right off the page be able to tell one character from another. If you then get into the booth and you can hear the voices and everyone is distinct, everyone is unique, and everyone has chemistry. And chemistry is very, very complicated. Sometimes,
especially because we're recording it piecemeal. You know, we never have them in doing, A, B, A, B, A, B. If we were doing this, it'd be Taliesin coming in 2 months ago, recording everything he's saying, me coming in now, recording my stuff, and hopefully it sounds like a conversation. I mean, really, when you stop and think about it, and sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you hear an exchange, you're like, oh, they emphasized the word wrong because they already said it, well, we need a pickup, and you get them back in to re-record that line. But the fact that conversations in anime ever sound like conversations is sort of magical.
That's what a good director does, is make sure is because the poor actors, this is one of the few places as an actor that you have no grip on what's going on. You have no control. You can't come out and make bold decisions as an actor when you're doing ADR. In like gaming you can, but you don't know what you're playing against, so you have to, there's a guy who's gonna like tone it down, bring it in. Like, are you sure this seems pretty serious? No, you're gonna fucking tone it down and bring it in.
Which is also the freedom of it, because it is the director's job to know exactly what they're going to get from that other person. So you don't have to sweat it. If they tell you, no, you need to do this such and such because blah, blah, blah.
There's a reason.
It shouldn't even get to that point. If they say do it that way, they've got their reason, and you do it.